Señoras, señores, film gods, April, here we go. The sun is out, the sun is shining. There's people moaning about how warm it is, and then it's got a chill in the air, so they pack a jumper, and then they're complaining it's too cold. It's beautiful. It's what a British summer and hot sunny weather is all about. Another opportunity for us to have a little moan and connect with our family and friends. And new style episode for me today. I hadn't been able to get a crew member or someone to jump on. We just couldn't get dates together. So I had an idea, and I've spent the last few days using Claude to help me create an episode that could be something that we move forward with on months that I can't get people, because it does feel like the start of the year was slow and was quiet for a large percentage of the people that I've been speaking to. Some are keeping themselves busy by doing lower end stuff, and doing what we do best, which at times is being on set for whatever amount of money the budget has allowed, whether it's 50 quid to help a mate out on a promo, and bring your own breakfast and lunch, or whether it's on the fully fledged top end features, commercials, whatever you do. So I hope you're all well. For all of you first time listeners, my name is Isusco Garcia, from grandparents are from Spain, sí, españoles. And for those of you that have listened before, you know what the Film Gods is about. We're here to document the human creative talent of this generation that make films, make content, make the visual entertaining medium in whatever form you ingest it in, and hearing their stories of what they do, how they did it, and how they got on. And it started in 2019 to document it for predominantly for those coming up, students, film students and runners. And then it became a thing in COVID. I just absolutely went for, I was recording 2, sometimes 3 episodes a day, releasing 1, up early, doing the editing, all of that kind of stuff. Industry came back big end of summer 2020, and then 21 was nuts, 22 was nuts, and then we got hit with the strikes in 23. And this episode today is going to touch base about that. We are obviously going to be talking about what is happening with AI. And I've used Claude, and we've been kind of, I call him Van Damme, or him. It's not even a him. Sorry, I call Claude Van Damme. I guess I said him because of Jean-Claude Van Damme, but yeah. So me and Van Damme have been bouncing back questions and honing the script of what the episode's going to be, and it's helped me kind of research the web and what would have taken me back in the day a week to do. We managed to do it in a good solid afternoon, but stretched over a day. And we waited until today. I'm recording it, it's Friday the 24th, because there's an important date on Monday that you'll know about and hear about in the episode, which will be the 27th of April 2026. So let me know in the comments, give me some feedback. If this kind of an episode is something that's worth carrying on, then I'll do it. And I'm never going to want to stop talking to people. I mean, it took me a hell of a lot of episodes to just shut the fuck up, put bluntly, absolutely bluntly just being quiet. No one was coming on to hear me. Okay, I get my little bit in this intro. This is mine. I talk. This is this is where I now get it all out. But when the episode is happening, it took me a few episodes, and I guess if you've gone back and you've started from episode 1, we've come on a long way in the 6 years. Come on a very long way. But now it's about listening and asking the right questions. And I had a mate of mine that does it. He didn't used to work in the film industry. Shout out Richie O'Neill. And then he was working in kind of top end, massive, like high end kitchens. Bounced around a bit, ended up in the catering truck. But he just said, look, even though I don't really know the industry and know the people, it just sounds like I'm listening to two friends. It's like I'm at the pub with two mates. I just can't say anything and interject. It's like no one's listening. And that's why I want these kind of episodes to still feel like you're having a bit of a chat or listening to someone who you know. So, you know, the regular chats are just two people talking about what they love doing. And this, I hope, starts to bring another version of an episode that maybe brings a load of current affairs and what's happening in the industry to you in a short little 5-10 minute intro that we normally do. And so the episodes, we will touch base on some of the things that happened in 23, what's coming up in 26, and where I think maybe we're going to be going. So, ladies and gents, if you've listened before and you haven't, it really, really helps to hit the follow or subscribe or 5 stars if you liked it. If you don't worry, it's fine. I get it. Every man and his dog has got a podcast out at the minute, so you're inundated. I totally understand it, but it does help. And where we were kind of globally number 1 during COVID in so many countries, I really, really want to thank all of the listeners that were around the world and that are still around the world listening. So shout out to all the film family globally. And if I've said something and you want to, you know, you've got some messages, jump on the Insta, hit me up, send me a DM. I'd love to just make sure that all of the beats are connecting and everyone knows that we're all doing the same thing. A film set in one part of the country is a film set in another part of the world, is a film set probably on another part of the universe. There will be something that will be doing some recording for the visuals. There'll be something that will be doing some recording for the sound. People will have made some decisions beforehand about clothes and hair and sets and props. And there'll be someone that will call action. And some stuff will get filmed. And then it'll be cut together and sent out to the world. And that's kind of it. So I love you all. I send positive vibes as always. And let's get to the app.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So the film gods. We're going to be doing a little episode today that I've called Hollywood Labor and the Global AI Turn. Because I've been trying to not be left behind, and I said it on the past episode that AI won't replace humans, but humans using AI will replace those that aren't, was something that I had a chat with a business mate of one of the dads at school, one of his mates, big in the tech world. And so with that in mind, I kind of started to project forward, and I sit there, I'm staring out my window in the office, and I see the world just changing but not changing and moving forward, and I asked myself, in, I don't know, 50 years time, 40 years time, if I have grandchildren or the grandchildren or your grandchildren, let's say that, will that generation care how the film has been made? Will it really care if it's AI or not? And that we'll delve into. But that's the question that sparked this episode for me. And I think the interesting topics, industries, I guess the more I delved, the more light that shone through. And the more you see that actually human evolution, technology, industries have always changed since the beginning of time and will always evolve. And there'll be those that love how it used to be. There'll be those that will only accept how it is right now. And then there'll be a pocket that adapt, accept, and move with what the industry or what the technology is. And so the first thing that I kind of want to talk about and just get it straight out there is what's happening in Hollywood right now, the timings. And so, as we said in the intro, 2023 we had strikes, Hollywood strikes, and that had I don't know how much of an impact it had globally, but really felt it here in the UK. Really felt it. Um, as most of you may or may not know, I don't work in features. I'm more short form, I'm content, a bit of documentary, bit of high-end TV, but non-scripted. Um, I just love the idea of being paid to go to these wonderful countries and film things that are happening for real. So that's my life. That's my world. Mainly commercials, bit of second in, mainly first in, but I love it. And that's just where my contacts were. That's where I got in, and they're the PMs that I know, the directors that I know, the production companies that I've worked with since I was much younger than I am today. For all of you watching on the YouTube, the beard needs a bit of a trim, and the greys have started to come. 42, the greys are here. Embracing them, let's do it. So 23. And we'll just go through it really quickly, just kind of the beats that happened in 23. So May 2nd, 23, the WGA they walk. July 14th, SAG-AFTRA joined them, and that is the first time that writers and actors have been out together since 1960. That's 60 odd, 63 years since that last happened. So then the WGA were out for 148 days. SAG-AFTRA were out for 118 days, which is the longest actor strike in Hollywood history. So it meant something. They were fighting for something. There was a reason that they were doing this. And I think that the three things that we've looked into that we think they were fighting about was one, streaming residuals, two, AI protection, and three, working conditions that they'd said that had quietly collapsed over a decade. I mean, COVID really just changed a lot of things, and I think actually changed how human beings interact with each other almost globally, keeping 2 meters, hugs, kisses, handshakes, all of that kind of stuff. And then it's, there's a whole trauma there that needs to be unpacked. But I think the headline stat was that in 2005, residuals were 22% of writers' total compensation, and by 2021, after streaming had taken over, that share had just collapsed. Right, so streaming just paid just like a flat fee, just a paid flat residual. So if it was a hit show or a flop, it was the same money. It was the same check. And I think that broke the economic spine of being a working writer, which if that's how and what you've done to survive, and then all of a sudden you're not getting paid, there are going to be issues and you are going to want to change something. And then at the same time, the Warner Brothers Discovery paid their CEO David Zaslav nearly $500 million over 5 years. And I think that optic did more for union support than any of the picket signs would have done. And there was a report saying that the public support peaked at 67% across political lines, which is almost impossible in modern America. So everyone got behind. It then I say ended and I'd say what they won, but from what I can gather, the WGA managed to get that AI can't be credited as a writer. That's it. So there was some laws, there were some limits or parameters set for kind of the minimum writers' room, minimum staffing periods for TV, and streaming success bonuses. So they managed to get things that they were happy with. SAG-AFTRA, their deal was worth over $1 billion US. And they had it written down that studios couldn't create or reuse a digital replica of an actor without explicit, informed, and specific consent. Sorry. And so they also added a streaming bonus, which was paid when a show hits 20% of its streamers' domestic subscribers in the first 90 days. So it's, they're kind of saying we don't want to be replicated without being informed or having explicit consent, which kind of makes sense because I guess some actors are politically active and they may not just want their images and voice sold to a film that they don't agree with or just a storyline that they don't want to be associated with. So I can understand it. But this is the thing that only hit home to me when I started researching was that there was a catch. And that catch was that it was a 3-year deal. Now, that 3-year deal is this year, it's 2026. So every single deal that was struck, every gain that they got, there was just this big clock ticking towards Cinderella Midnight where have to then restart it. And so the 2026 deadline or timelines, we've got February the 9th. So recording this, as I said, February the 24th of April. So February the 9th, we know that SAG-AFTRA went in first into negotiations, which is unusual but probably strategic. So March 15th, SAG-AFTRA then pauses and the WGA come in. A few weeks later, so from March the 15th to April the 4th, the big thing that kind of came out was that actually the WGA reached a surprised early deal, which had no strike authorization vote, and they've struck a deal for 4 years. So we're looking at 2030 then, to then come back and do another episode of the podcast to see how that's coming on. And they actually managed to get that deal 1 month before their previous deal expired. So it feels like good timing, but maybe there's bigger pieces at play here. So April 27th, which is Monday, I don't know when you're listening to this, but I'll more than likely be dropping it at the weekend, is when SAG-AFTRA are back at the table. And that's going to be an important month because then May 11th, the DGA begin. They're not really known for striking, and Christopher Nolan is now the president of the DGA, and it's the first time that he's led this, which then brings to end of June, so June the 30th, SAG-AFTRA and DGA contracts expire. Now that's the real cliff edge that we're kind of working towards. Now with those timelines, everything that I was starting to read, AI was the headline. It's all about AI, protecting actors, protecting thing, AI, 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 AI in Hollywood. But the more I looked into it, the more that there seemed to be another element at play here. Um, you know, you kind of look into Hollywood, and there's always articles about Tilly Norwood and synthetic performers and digital replicas, and I think that could potentially just be the veneer of the problem. And actually, underneath that, um, it's just something a little bit less creative and a little bit and probably a lot more existential for the workers out in America. And I think that it's actually their health funds. And I tell you for why, I suddenly got into my Welsh background there. I tell you for why. Whose coat is that jacket? For any of our global listeners, none of that will make any sense. But I just love the Welsh language. It's so poetic. It's got this nice intonation. But I'll go back to who I am and what I was talking about. So the numbers I think that tell the real story here is that the WGA Health Fund lost 122 million in 2 years. That's a big chunk of change. And they're saying at the current rate, reserves run out during the next contract term. Now, that's not alarmist. I'm not trying to, spark or start a fire here of panic. That is the WGA's own report to members in February 2026. Similarly, the DGA health plan, in Christopher Nolan's own words to the DGA members in November 25, says that it has run negative for the past 2 years, and those losses are projected to increase significantly. Um, and so where I think that that's significant is that the WGA reached a deal on April the 4th, and it was reported that 321 million cash injection has been put into its health fund. Now, that is massive. That's huge. That is huge. Um, but it's the AI language that got the press. So it's, that side of the story is being spoken about, not the health funds. Now, look, we live in the UK. We've got a health service. If I fall ill, it won't bankrupt me. But maybe in America, with the way that their system goes, you do need healthcare. And if the studios are going to come in and really, almost double the loss that you've had in the last couple of years, that's going to be useful. So I can understand, and I need to look more into the exacts of the deal when they're out. Um, but having some AI restrictions or some rulings around numbers for staff in rooms and the healthcare fund. I mean, no wonder it didn't take that long and they said yes. Um, and so the question then that I then had was, well, then why are these funds dying? What is happening to the pool of money here? And I guess um, the answer that I got back was that employer contributions depend on members working. Now you're in that catch 22. If members aren't working and production has, American Hollywood has gone to the UK, has gone to Eastern Europe, has gone to anywhere in Europe, has gone to other parts of the world, their members then are not working. And those members not working then means that there's fewer contributions um, to the plan, and then that means that the money is going down. It's really basic, simple math. But then if you stack on top of that, the Trump administration and congressional Republicans let the Affordable Care Act subsidies lapse in 2025, you've got kind of healthcare inflation is just everywhere. The funds are then getting squeezed from both ends. So it's a bigger play, and there's a lot going on in America right now. Politically, historically, there's a lot going on in the world, there's a lot going on in our industry, there's a lot going on which is having knock-on effects for everything else. So, it seems like that the studio's leverage and the AMPTP strategy across all three guilds has probably been the same. It's just, look, we'll write a massive check into your health fund, and in return, you give us a 4 or 5 year contract instead of three. Now, the WGA has accepted that. So it's accepted that trade, and they're locked in for 4 years. Christopher Nolan, who in January of this year, 26, um, kind of said, well, look, on 5 years, he said, if we had agreed a 5 year deal back in 23, where would we be? Where would we be right now? You know, what situation? This industry is changing so quickly at an alarming pace. Um, if they had no other deal to be able to go back to the table for another 2 years, a lot can happen in 2 years. So I think that kind of answer, I think, is just a very polite way of kind of saying, yeah, I don't think I don't think we're going to go for a 4 or 5 year deal, but it's negotiation. Um, and then you've got the third um, union, the SAG-AFTRA. So Duncan Crabtree Island reportedly told the AMPTP in March that, and quote, airtight AI protections, unquote, were the price of agreeing to a longer contract. And they couldn't close that gap. So that's why their talk paused. And that is where they're going to start picking up on April the 27th. That's where they're going to start from again. So I don't think that AI is really the main issue, and I've got a sneaky feeling that it's probably more about health insurance. And the unions are watching their members' health funds just. I use the phrase bleeding out. It's very metaphorical, but just dwindling down, just slowly reaching the floor. And if the studios dangle a 4 year deal and a massive amount of money into their health fund, the likelihood is they're probably, well, I can understand why they said yes. I can understand it. So in essence, you kind of it takes you back to what this industry is all about, and it's a film business, and you've always got to follow the money. Always got to follow that cash. Um, so then the residual element was quite an interesting thing for me because I'm as an AD in short form, I don't really get to speak to many to long form writers, and I think in America the writing process is maybe slightly different. I know that here, it's one to smaller amount of people in a writing room, but in America there can be a much larger room with a lot more people in that room, and so um the residuals is is the other kind of unfinished business, really. And this is where 2023 left the door open. So the streaming bonus SAG-AFTRA 1 was projected at 40 billion, sorry, 40 million. I apologize, take it back. Lose the B, change it to a M. 40 million annually, and it's coming well below that. There was an article in Variety said. And so residuals used to be how working actors and writers survived that gap between jobs. It's the same thing, in probably long form, you're going to be in a stretch for a much greater length of time, and then you'll more than likely be out of work for a much longer length of time. Whereas commercials, you kind of do 2, 3 days a week. You might have a 6 day, you might have a week off. It's shorter bounces, but I totally understand how having a residual would be absolutely delightful. It's one of the only reasons I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a stunt person. Um, and then every time I get kicked in the face, which I'm sure there'll be loads of people on this planet that want to do, I get paid in perpetuity. So I totally understand it. But the streaming, that kind of residual, the streaming broke it. And so getting that one check for whether the show was a flop or a hit, that's a big change. That was a big change. So then that 2023 bonus structure, and also the 23 bonus structure only kicks in at 20% of a streamer's domestic subscribers, which Fran Drescher said she hoped that the next cycle gets that down to 10%. We'll see, full stop. So I think this is why the health fund crisis matters so much, because if you can't survive on residuals and you can't rely on steady work, and your union health plan is the only thing standing between you and a medical bankruptcy, well, you take that away, and that's a massive amount of people that are in an industry that just collapse and fall out of it. So we 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 then come to the point now where the WGA have accepted a deal. The DGA, let's get to them in a minute. Will the SAG-AFTRA strike? And will what happened in 2023, as I rub my face, slight fear of it happening. But the more I looked into it and the more I read up on it, well, let's see. I won't give my opinion. Let's just talk through the facts. So, as of Friday, the 24th of April, we know that the WGA has already taken a deal. Yeah. And this is it's called pattern bargaining. So once one guild settles, the other feels enormous pressure to accept similar terms. Will that dictate what SAG-AFTRA do? Don't know, but there's a precedence there now that producers can go, well, they've said yes. You're now the issue, um, and can anyone really afford it? Um, I can only imagine the impact that we had, the ripples across the pond that hit us post or during the strikes. It must have really had a massive impact on LA. Huge, huge, to the point that there's probably some people out there that won't recover. Some, small companies that maybe hired props or did this or rented cameras, or if you didn't have a massive nest egg to fall back on, um, it's probably decimated some smaller, nimble companies that were living job to job, shoot to shoot, check to check. Um, and also the strikes happen. Maybe that leads productions to think, well, we still need to finish. Well, let's go to South America. Let's go to Europe. Let's go to Asia. Let's go and film somewhere else. And then all of a sudden, you then set a precedence, or you set a pattern of not shooting as much in LA or America as you used to. So there's those knock-on effects. Um, and I guess Astin's public tone has been notably softer than his 2023 predecessor, Fran Drescher. He's now talking about stability and clarity, whereas Drescher was talking about, land of the free, home of the brave, a very quite, stark difference in mentality. Because I guess in 2023, that level of strike had never happened for 60 plus years. So I think there'll be a lot of lessons that were learned, and only time will tell how SAG-AFTRA now deal with their second round of chats. But a lot has happened since 23. As we said before, Tilly Norwood is kind of fully AI generated actress. She kind of became the symbol of 2025. And so then that threat that was hypothetical suddenly was like, oh no, 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 she's here. You want to hire? Yeah, 24 hours a day, any global, wherever you want to use her, whatever you want to do. But I do see videos online. There's this American director, and it might be parody or whatever, but he shows a casting call with an AI actor and uses the same processes as you would with a real person, asking them to do normal things that you would ask a human to do in a casting, in a reading. And at the minute, the tech isn't there The emotion isn't there. The human nuances of cues and the psychology behind why we do things that we don't even know what. Like I was listening to one, again, TikTok video or Instagram video, and it's this CIA agent and blah blah blah, and they're talking about how if you're talking to someone and they're touching their face a lot, it's because they're feeling vulnerable. Now, you could probably plug that into an AI agent and just go, "Hi, look, I want you to feel vulnerable," and blah blah blah. They're probably just constantly touch their face because that's what the prompt has told them to do. Whereas I I don't honestly think right now the tech is there for I love the story of Al Pacino in The Godfather, where it's his first. I think I'm sure I'm correct in thinking it was his first major motion picture, um, because I think he was theatre based, and to turn around to Francis Ford Coppola and in the scene, I mean, look, if you haven't watched The Godfather now, I'm not spoiling anything. It's been a while. Um, and he just tells Francis Ford Coppola in probably the most heightened moment of the film where he's sitting there with one of the other leaders, one of the other mafioso, and the police chief. He's like, just film my eyes. Just 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 give me a close up of the eyes. And he put on some train track noise after over the top, and a little bit of lighting, and you know exactly what's going through his head. You know, just from looking at his eyes. No, I don't think we're there yet with the AI. Anyway, digressed. Back to it. Um, the Tilly Norwoods of this world and the AI digital replicas of themselves for SAG-AFTRA were a massive deal. But there's a lot that's come on now. There's a lot that's come on, and if you're going to predict the future, the tech will get better. It will just keep getting better and better and better. And Will Smith eating spaghetti, pretty soon he's going to be making that. He's going to be rolling out the pasta, making it fresh, boiling the water, and it's you're going to smell it coming out of the computer. That's what it's going to be like. Um, so then, so back to the points that we were talking about. That for SAG-AFTRA, AI has gotten worse and it hasn't got better. So from 25, where Tilly came into our sphere, um, it's real, and the 23 deal protects performers from digital replicas of themselves, but it does nothing about fully synthetic performers, and that doesn't resemble anyone specifically. So there's an avenue that SAG-AFTRA is actively exploring, a proposal to tax studios every time they use a synthetic performer. Makes sense. So that money could just be going straight into the health fund. And the one line that I saw from one of the union sources, they called it the best bad idea we've got in 2026, which kind of makes sense. So you're kind of going, look, is there going to be anything we can do about this? Probably not. Well, if it's going to happen, how can we make money for our members? You tax the AI agents. And then I guess the thought is that um, you maybe make it more expensive or just as expensive, or, takes enough of a dent into a budget um, that AI isn't as affordably cheap in America for Hollywood pictures than using than using a human being. So then the final little note is that SAG-AFTRA has just come off a year-long video game strike, 24 to 25. So we can see that the union is willing to walk. So it kind of had a strike in 23, had a strike in 24. They're not messing about. They're not messing about. Um, but do I think a 23 shutdown is likely? No, I don't think so. I think maybe if anything, there will be a short strike. And when I say short, it could be anything from a few days to a few months. Maybe not the months, but maybe the days. Maybe a week, two, but not that massive, huge 148 days. Well, I mean, look, who knows? But I can't see it this time. I can't see it this time happening. I don't think the DGA will join. I don't think they've ever struck. Maybe they have, but they don't tend to strike. Um, and with the WGA out of the game, SAG-AFTRA is on its own. Um, and so time will tell. I don't think it will be as big as 23. I think if they can get as many of their points over the line and there's enough of a dangle carrot, there's enough of a dangle carrot, there's enough of a carrot dangled for the health fund. I don't. I think that will all. I think they'll come to an agreement, which kind of a little closer to home in the AD front. Bectu and Pact are kind of going through similar rate card chats at the minute. And so Bectu AD branch is trying to get parity with similar roles on the call sheet. I think as an assistant director, I genuinely think that we do a lot and we are that door between production and crew, between creative and logistics, and having parity with similar HODs on long form, I think is fair. And conversations are ongoing. May the 1st, I think, is the when the new rate card comes out. And so, branch going around, we're talking to I say they, got to be neutral on this position here as a host of the podcast. And also from a short form, we've got APA rates that we mainly deal with. So I feel very lucky that they're there. But from a global perspective, those same conversations that happen in America about rates and members are happening here. So it's the same conversation. Hollywood, Pinewood, doesn't matter. It's the same principles. There's an element of the industry being a billion-dollar industry or multi-billion-dollar industry, and just making sure that the people that are making it, that are spending 12, 14, 16 hours in studios and on locations, are being remunerated and compensated respectfully, is where I sit with it. And so those conversations are ongoing. We will see where it lands. I'd love to reach out to someone at the AD branch, maybe get you on, have a little chat. Who knows? And so that feels like that's the kind of the labor story of it all. Going from Hollywood all the way to London. Let's London. And this is where I was going to wrap it up, the episode, and I know we're going to getting close to that 40 odd minute mark. Or at 30 something. So the AI twist came as I started to look at the strikes, because it was just going to be a straight up, this happened in 23, this happened in 26. But globally, there came a little pivot that I saw. And in September 25, I saw there was this little AI video called Critterz. There was a chap who used to work, I think, as OpenAI. Yeah, he worked at OpenAI, and he created this short little animation called Critterz. Quite nice. Had a handful of it was all AI, a handful of generated animals slash monsters living in part of the rainforest that no one had ever seen before, and they had like a David Attenborough type narrator over the top, and it was a nice few little moments. It's nice. Um, that then in September was going to be turned into a full length feature animation film. Global production. So I think there's OpenAI that are backing it. The Vertigo films are in London, a part of it, and then there was also some backing from France, a Parisian company. And the interesting thing was is that whereas at Disney Pixar, for example, that high end level of animation costs between anything from 100 to 200 million, or no, 200 to 400 million. Oh, let me go back. Let's, yeah, 200. Let's go 200 million because there was a lot of different films that all cost a lot, but the median was about 200 mil, and it would normally take about 3 years. So 200 million, 3 years. Critics were coming out and claiming or aiming for Cannes release in 2026, which is coming up next month, and saying they could do it in 9 months with 30 million. Now, 30 million, 9 months, 200 million, 3 years. That's a massive disruptor, massive disruptor. And I think there was only a team of, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't have the numbers in front of me. It was like a team of less than 50, could even be less than 30 to create this Critters. Now that's huge. That is huge for that animation world. Um, and whilst whilst we're whilst Hollywood are kind of looking at these unions and trying to, I guess, trying to maintain an industry as to how we did it, Critters is coming along, and these AI films are coming along and just disrupting it. And so I kind of went, well, what is the question that I had was like, okay, let's figure out because we always seem to do this. Something new comes along, we panic, we adapt, we evolve, we move on, we improve. So I went, right, what is film? So I just spent an entire kind of session just going through what has happened in film and how it's been affected. And so we start off um, by zooming out to the Luminaire brothers. Now I know that I think it actually got started in the UK and there was some like shots in the garden or something, but that Luminaire 1896 in Leon seems to be a bit of a pivotal moment. And they projected a 50-second film called L'arrivée d'un train en gare de la Ciotat or Ciotat, I don't know, not French. So the arrival of a train at La Ciotat station, and it was, I'm sure you all know, steam locomotive that was pulling into the station. Cameras on the platform, so it feels like, so it's looking like it's coming towards. Now the legend is that a load of people in the audience panicked and screamed, "Ah, oh my God, sacre bleu, le train!" It turns out that actually it feels like a myth, and Martin Leuperdinger in 2004 wrote a paper about and debunking it. But it there was a Russian writer called Maxim Gorky who did write in 1896 that after seeing it, it said it speeds right at you. Watch out. It seems as though it will plunge into the darkness in which you sit. Now that is real. All right, people screaming and shouting, totally get, but someone writing their feelings about what was happening, um, and that was genuinely startled. That we could, it probably was built on that exaggeration. But why does that matter? Well, because that one moment that happened gets built and built and built up and built up and built up, and then four generations later, you know, oh, my great great grandfather was there on, seeing the Luminaire brothers, and they ran out, and there was a stampede and panic, and how we talk about things changes over time. Um, and that Luminaire, it was just an unedited static camera shot on the platform. And critics at the time called it fairy ground novelty, and it wasn't an art form. So scientific curiosity that would wear off. They didn't see it as art. The word movie didn't exist, the word cinema didn't exist, the word film only really referred to the celluloid that was the strip that was going through it. That it was the thing that you watched, the film. And that was film. That's what it was. It started as a 50-second piece of documentary. One cut, no, sorry, one angle. There was no editing. It just showed what it was, a moment of mundane life that was shown between circus acts. Now, if you compare that to what film is today, and films 2, sometimes 3 hours long, edited between different performances from different people in different locations, in just a mammoth task of human proportion. And some animations are in years in post-production. And there, you look at the credits, there are sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that have created this thing that we call film, that started off as a 50-second piece of documentary. And every decade we've added something. So if you think about it, black and white, silent movies, um, television was going to kill the radio, CGI was going to kill special effects, um, digital cameras was going to kill film, streaming was going to kill theatre production, so films out in the theatre. But what seems to have happened is every single time, every single year, every single decade, something has come along that humans have adapted and adjusted and evolved from. Now, every generation has panicked, and there has been elements to the art form at that time that have been lost. I get it. Vaudeville, done. Silent actors, done, finished. You had to be able to speak and your voice be used in film. Those practical effects of, if we were building, if you look at Meg compared to Jaws, yeah, they built a massive boat. Had the animatronic shark's head, which broke. So because it broke, they didn't show as much of it. And actually that made the film a little bit scarier, because you just see, wide shots of the ocean and you hear the music, and that made the film. And I think that's also part of why I think humans love film, because they're kind of human people coming together to make something, adjusting when needed, flexing when needed, problem solving, and the happy accidents that happen, that all of you film crew and cast listening to this have all been on set when we've done that. Something's broke. We need to move on to something else. Well, let's try and fix that. There's a human endeavor to it that I think adds to the soul of the film. And there is a part 2 to this, but I think I want to wrap it up there, where we've touched base on the strikes. They're coming up on Monday. The AI is a bigger deal and a bigger fish to fry than I think trying to delve into it here now doesn't give it as much breathing space as it needs to. And I feel like I'd be rushing to try and get this episode done. But I'm going to leave with, yes, AI is affecting our industry. Yes, it will have an impact, but we will come out at the end of it. There will be an industry after it, through it, during it. And it's down to us to leave something for that next generation and for 7 generations to come. So, ladies and gents, look, enjoy. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming. I send lots of love. And until we meet again, that is a wrap. So that was a chat with the king or queen in the game. I'll give it a shout at the end so you all know the name. It's the Film Gods Podcast. The what? The Film God Podcast.